Hi, hello. If you're new here, my name is Rain. If you're not new here, welcome back. I really appreciate you stopping on by to my little corner of the internet. And I put up a poll the week before last asking if you guys wanted to see a old sketchbook tour or see me finish a self-portrait. Self-portrait was the loser of that, so now 2 weeks later I am finishing that video. If you're interested in seeing the sketchbook tour, that will be linked up in the card below. But other than that, before we get into the video, I would really appreciate it if you watch it all the way through. It really means a lot to me to know that people sit through my unhinged ramblings about art and OC theories. But of course, I'm happy to have you for as long as you're willing to stick around. And now, topic-wise, a self-portrait. It's been a while since I've done one of these, I think. At least one where I didn't have horns. And so that was a little bit awkward. It's been a while since I've just drawn myself as a normal human. And so I don't know, I wanted to be kind of authentic in the presentation of myself. So I did bust out the Ohuhu skin color set just because I am pale, right? Sure, you can see it in my hands. I am very pale. I have pretty red, tips to my fingers and, elbows and joints and stuff. And because of the preliminary sketch, I didn't get to have any fun with things like that. I'm a huge fan of, red, purple, and black fingertips, a nice gradient. So I kind of regret it. I kind of want to do another self-portrait just so I can have fun coloring hands. I might just do a whole video of me practicing and feeling out just fun hands, though. It's been a while since I've just gone on a hand adventure, so maybe I'll just get my fun hand fix that way, or do another fun illustration of the sorts. But I definitely am not used to coloring myself in a traditional method. I think my last proper self-portrait that was colored was done digitally, and all of my self-portraits after and before that were uncolored. They were just pencil sketches, so it was very odd to have to look at the tones of my face and try and match things to it. It was definitely an awkward experience, and I don't actually know my own undertones and things like that. I've never been somebody who could really conceptualize that type of information, undertones and things like that. I don't comprehend it very well. I'm bad at processing that information in people. And so it was really awkward trying to stare at my own face and be like, am I more yellow or red and what? I'm so accustomed to just kind of coloring what looks right. But when it comes to a self-portrait, I do want to present myself kind of authentically. You know what I mean? It's not just go for what looks good. I'm trying to have some level of sense to my artistic decisions. And then that all went out the window when I saw the color purple, but we'll get to that. I definitely don't think I placed my piercings particularly well, and I'm not entirely sure what happened and what went wrong with it, but my pen started smudging on the face, and only the face. I had let this pen dry for 2 days, so I'm not sure if I used one that for some reason was not the same brand and therefore didn't have the usual kind of permanence, not bleedable behavior. I'm not sure how to word it, but my usual pens don't, my Unipin fine liners don't usually smudge like that, so it was definitely a very, I'm confused. I'm not entirely sure why the face started smudging, but I do think that kind of altered the way I approached coloring the face in a way that made it look a little bit goofy. I tried to fix it, but I'm not actually sure if I did. But ultimately, I kind of find that my face looks darker through my glasses. I don't have tinted glasses, so I'm not entirely sure why it happens. You'd think I'd know. I don't. But I kind of feel like my glasses almost make my skin look a little bit tinted, even though there isn't one. I don't think that would happen with the blue light tinting that my glasses have, since like I can't see it personally, but I'm not sure. Maybe it's just how things like capture in photos. So I did start by darkening up around the eyes a little bit and then using that to kind of inform the rest of the face. And a dark undershadow for the neck and harsh necklines are just, I can't say no to them, even if I'm not that defined. I don't think my neck vein things right there are that sharp, but it's so indicative of my style. I literally didn't even think about it until after I did, and I was like, I don't think this is right, and then I kept going. Eye bags are accurate though. Can definitely say my under eyes are very dark. I do think I could have gone a little more intense with the yellowing of it though. I do notice that my under eyes have a bit of a yellow hue to them, and I have really dry under eyes. Learned that in this process. Didn't appreciate that life revelation, but you know. So now kind of getting away from the skin and kind of those struggles that started to occur with it. Why am I doing a self-portrait? Thank you all for 800 subscribers. I know I said it in my last video because that's when I actually hit the 800 subscribers, but I'm still very appreciative of it. And of course, this was the second thing on the thank you for 800 subscribers poll that I did. So I do want to say it again. I really appreciate everybody just who takes the time out of their day once a week or not even to just sit with me and enjoy the art creation process and chat and just have fun little good times, right? I don't know. I've always loved art communities, and I love watching other artists and getting to indulge in the kind of casual relationship that can occur in the art community, where it's almost like we're all drawing together. It's one of the best parts about art classes that I very much miss being an online student, is the feeling of getting to be an artist with other people, and just how lovely that is, right? So I'm very stoked that people enjoy my art enough to sit here with me and to chat with me in the comments and listen to my art thoughts and theories and all of this stuff, my OCs and all of that, and stick around. I'm very appreciative, and I definitely, when I started this channel, didn't think my art was good enough to get to this point. Of course, artist and imposter syndromes, what else are we good at, right? Besides doubting ourselves and our artistic abilities? Question mark, maybe? So thank you guys so much. I'm really appreciative of just you all existing here and indulging in my art. And I feel like I've had a lot of wins in the last 2 weeks. Aside from I did record my voiceover well in advance for the sketchbook tour. I had good reason to. My birthday happened, and I was not going to be available for the couple of days prior to upload because of that. At least not to have my computer running to upload the video. So my birthday happened, and I want to make a whole video about this, but I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to do it. It's definitely going to be kind of like a part 2 to my why you don't need to go to art school video. But I got accepted to my graduate school, so I am going to be getting my Master's of Fine Arts, and I don't think I mentioned it too much in that video, but in my why you don't need to go to art school video, I discussed the topic of how you do not necessarily need a degree to be an artist, and you shouldn't let people tell you that you need a degree to be an artist. And so while I'm saying I'm getting my MFA, I want to make it very clear that you're an artist whether you have one or not, for sure. There is absolutely no point in my mind where I think that someone who gets an education is a better artist than another person. And I want to also make it clear that I'm getting my MFA because I know I need it for what I want to do artistically, and that is teach art. I want to be a college art professor, and I want to be able to teach scientific illustration and do scientific illustration in an academic environment. And then above all else, I want to be a better art teacher than the art teachers who made me believe I couldn't be an artist when I was much younger, right? Because I think I've mentioned it on my channel, but my first ever art class was a college art class. I took it at a community college locally in high school, right? I went to a high school where you were able to do that, and my first experience ever being in an art class was one where I came out of it believing that I couldn't be an artist and my art wasn't good enough and that my art was invalid and I was inferior and things like that, right? And so that class was the most interesting class of that college section, and there is an arts section in college for the general education for a reason, right? And I'm of the mindset that if you're going to make people take art classes, you need to approach teaching that beginner art class with a level of grace that I wasn't offered, and I want to be better than that. I want people who take their one and only art class in life for their degree, whether it's them being a psychology major, a science major of like the hard, quote unquote, hard sciences, whether you're an English major, I want your one and only art class that you take to be an experience where you get to indulge in a level of creativity that you have innate to you, regardless of how your art actually turns out. I want people, especially people in the sciences whom don't necessarily get to indulge in their creative side as much, to get to be creative and create stuff that evokes their greatest passions, right? And I want people to feel invigorated artistically and empowered. Even if they don't like the quality of their work, I want the experience to do something magical for them. And that's something I really want to be able to give to people, right? Because at the end of the day, most people who are taking that beginner art class and aren't artists aren't going to like their work all that much. But I think that there's something to be said about making people in that situation feel proud of what they accomplished, right? Just because you're not a fine artist and just because your like actual artist classmates do create work that you perceive as being better than yours, I think that you need to be uplifted and informed that the actual like quality of your output means nothing compared to what it felt like to create the work, what it meant to you, what you got out of the experience, right? Because at the end of the day, as an artist, I'm an artist whether other people see it or not, right? And that's something that I'm firm in the belief of. I don't believe you need an audience, and I don't believe you need to sell your work or publish your work to be a real artist. And if you're just somebody who colors mandalas all day and that's your thing and you don't even do the line art, I still think you have a creative aspect to you and that is your art still, right? Because you're going out of your way to do something artistic and pursue something not everyone can and does want to pursue for your own creative outlet and your enjoyment, for some sort of therapeutic artistic benefit, right? And so people who do adult coloring books, there are loads of adults who do adult coloring books that are just like factually better at rendering than I could ever fantasize of being. And I definitely could never discredit them. Like, I can't color as good as you do. What? Line art's kind of my thing, right? I'm never gonna be a mandala coloring girly, and I'm never gonna be one of those coloring book queens that other people are, right? I mean, there are plenty of people who are really good at it, and I'm not. And so why should we discredit them, right? And why shouldn't we encourage them to be happy and proud of that, right? Because that's still them being creative. And so I want to create that experience for people who are required to take an art class in their college. I believe music and theater is in the same section, so I definitely, even if I didn't like art, would have not done theater. I'm not the sort who could have handled that. But I want to create that experience where people actually get to feel good about their work, because I didn't. I mean, I've mentioned it before, but I was so disheartened after taking that class that I didn't draw for like a year and a half or more, right? So it was up to me as a teenager to rediscover my passion in art and to tell myself and understand that one teacher's perspective of my work is not finite, and that there are always going to be people who aren't proud of you. And while it is anecdote and I don't have a statistic on hand, I think that I am not alone, at the very least, in saying that I've seen a lot of artists talk about how at some point in their artistic journey, an art teacher told them that their art, in particular, the type of art that they make, will never be successful, right? I think a lot of artists have that experience regardless of the art they make, because art is such a subjective experience and there is no one correct way, that I think that no matter what, you're going to find one person who's a professional who doesn't value your type of art and the type of art that you're creating and enjoying and the type of messaging that you're presenting, right? And so ultimately, I just feel so strongly about this, and I think that everybody has an artistic component to them. And I admit, unfortunately, that beginner art class or that basics introductory art class you take in college is not going to cater to everybody's creative aspect. You know what I mean? It's definitely not going to grant the opportunity for people to get to pursue woodworking type art projects. And that might be just the realm of creativity that you have. And I unfortunately don't think I can change the California education system to allow woodworking projects to be part of that curriculum. And I don't know that I'm going to be able to master teaching value studies with blocks of wood, but I do want the pursuit, right? And that's something that's really important to me. And I also have had art teachers who have made me confident enough to be where I'm sitting today, right? I mentioned it before in a video, but this is my first semester without an art teacher that I've had every single semester since I started my 4-year journey for my botany degree and my art degree, right? Because I'm getting both. And so this is my first time without her, and I discussed how I felt like isolated and almost heartbroken that I don't have her. She's been with me for 3.5 years now. She's been supporting me, and she is fundamentally important to my artistic journey. She has held my hand and guided me on the path where I figured out what I value and want of my art. And I don't know that I'd be drawing the way I draw if I didn't have the book recommendations and the critiques that she offered me. I'm not saying that she's the only thing that's influenced my artistic decisions, and maybe I would have ended up in a similar place, but she pushed me on an intellectual level to understanding my art in ways that it would have taken me a long time to figure out by myself, right? Because I wasn't posting my art in places where people could critique it, and I wasn't posting it in places where people actually was really seeing it. So those critiques are not things I would have been getting online. I was getting them from her at the time, and only really her. Not even my peers were particularly great at critiques early in college, unfortunately. I kind of want to put it in my college art bio, please roast my work. I really want to know the rawest of impressions of my work so that I can be my best, right? And here online on YouTube, I'm a little bit less interested in just having people pick apart technicalities, but I also am always open to constructive criticism on my work. I'm of the belief that the internet is a space that I can come to when I want to, and if I'm not in the headspace or the mood for constructive criticism, I can disclaim that for the particular work if that's important, or I can wait and save that comment for another time, right? And so the only works where I'm hesitant on constructive criticism are the videos where I'm working on and finishing my disability-centered work. If I've just gone on a rant about how this work has been influenced by my disability and how my disability has impacted my life up until now, I don't think that comment section is probably where I'm going to be the most excited to hear people giving constructive criticism on the overall like piece of work. But of course I'm not going to say no to it if it's nice and politely done, because ultimately at the end of the day, constructive criticism should always be nice and politely executed, right? You don't need to be mean to say that you think that something could have been formally performed better. And even then, I'm not a huge fan of telling people your art would look better if you did this unless they deliberately asked for it. But I try to be open to it on the internet because I feel like that's just something that happens. It hasn't happened over here on YouTube, I don't think. But I'm so used to it on Instagram where just all of a sudden my art is completely wrong in some capacity that I'm like disclaiming it, right? But I don't know. I definitely have encountered some very strange and borderline offensive criticism in my time on Instagram, so maybe it's just an Instagram thing. There are bad apples everywhere, but maybe it's just much more of an Instagram thing. And so ultimately, I have no idea how I started this tangent, and that's okay because you guys signed up for this. Y'all know how I am at this point, but overall, I do know that I was discussing the fact that an MFA is important for my goal of becoming an art teacher. And I think that at the same time, I feel it's important to note that when we're thinking about our career in art, if we want to have one at all, how are you going to survive? And I don't mean to be a downer in that capacity. I don't want to discredit people's dreams or make them feel insecure. And maybe this comes from my own insecurity and my own lack of confidence, but I am very scared of relying solely on the creation of art for my income, because I don't think I have the personal strength, I guess you could say, to just rely on my art for money. I want stability that comes from something other than my motivation to create work, right? And I don't want to have to create work for the sake of making money. I don't think that my love of art can supersede the anxiety that I face as an American in our financial system, right? And I can't speak for being an artist in a different country, and I can't speak for working in the arts in a different country because I don't know those economies, right? And I don't know the value of art as it's perceived there. So take with that what you will. I don't have that backbone. I don't have that strength to me. So ultimately, I also feel like I need that structural stability. And this gives me an opportunity to blend all of my worlds together, right? If I have the ability to teach scientific illustration along with beginner art courses, I get to have exactly what I wanted and everything that I wanted, right? I get to love botany, and I get to show people the beauty of the natural world through art, and I get to continue working in the sciences that I've wanted to work in since I was a child without actually giving up on both of my passions. And maybe I don't need to make a whole separate video on this because I'm just going into it apparently, but to be able to blend my love for botany with my love for art, and to get to educate people and create a safe space where people get to pursue their greatest curiosities and science, isn't that just perfect, right? Is this not the career path that will grant me ideally the best of all my worlds? I don't know, but I do know that having a condition that's really impacted my ability to be a botanist and do what I wanted to do, this is the closest I think I'm going to get to getting to be a botanist without putting too much strain on my body or not being able to do it for a survivable wage, right? And so maybe I'm just trying to cling to the idea that I'm going to get to do what I love, but I definitely can't be a botanist the way I wanted to, and I love art all the same. So perhaps it's all an illusion and I'm deceiving myself, but I'm very excited, really. I'm excited to be on the next step to getting to do this, right? An MFA is the final hurdle between me and the education I need to get to do what I want, right? And do I think you need an MFA to be an artist? Absolutely not. Do you need to go to a fancy art college for your MFA? Probably not. Do you need to say hi to Fizzgig when she pops into the videos? Absolutely. Although that was a minute ago. But do you need to be very, very conscious about who you want to work for in the industry and what college will give you the best connections? Maybe. But you're an artist whether you get a degree or not, and you're an artist whether you've ever taken an art class in your life or not, right? That's just my own fact. I don't accept arguments on whether or not that is a fact or not. I say you're an artist if you never do it and you love art and you make things, right? And that doesn't have to be like visual arts. I don't know. I don't know how much people consider creative writing like an art as opposed to other things, but I still find like creative writing an art in itself. As long as you're making something, I think you've done something wonderful, right? So, does it matter? I don't know. I mean, damn, go write the most unhinged fan fiction you want. At least you created something that made you happy, right? Or made you cry. Maybe you're doing it for your own suffering, and maybe then that contradicts my philosophy. But I don't have the brain capacity to think about that right now, so I mean, if you have thoughts, if you write stories to make yourself cry, are you making yourself happy by having a creative outlet, or are you just using it to create and progress your own suffering? I don't know. But that is irrelevant. Now getting back to a point in the art component of the video where I actually feel like I have something to say. This sweater was a fist fight, okay? It's not done at this point, but I didn't realize that I don't think the Ohuhu oranges and I get along. And maybe it's just me and the color orange, but I feel like I do orange a lot better digitally. And I was very much having a hard time with this orange sweater, which is odd because I actually wear a fair bit of orange. Not because I want to, but I wear this orange sweater most of the week. My orange and my black sweater are my primary clothing options. Okay, I wear this orange sweater constantly. I've done portraits of myself in this orange sweater, but I've never colored the orange sweater. My classic orange sweater. And I feel so conflicted. I feel like a failure for not being able to color in the color orange correctly. But it was a fight, and I definitely need to feel out the way orange looks a little bit more, because it felt wrong and it didn't feel right, and I don't know what happened, but it's not great. And then in terms of the hair, my hair's a bit of more of a brown, but it's kind of auburny red when it gets hit by the light. So I did an orange underbase, and I think I'm used to working with a little bit lighter colors. I think it would have been better if I just did an orange overlay. I do a bit of an overlay later just to add more of that hue to it, but the orange base just didn't seem relevant. I'm sure you guys saw it disappear pretty quickly, but it's fine. Building up the facial features with more skin tone to make me look a little bit less dead. I did get a little bit out of hand with the purple, but purple eye bags and eye bags in general are just so innate to my style. I don't think it can be a self-portrait if I just completely disregard my style, so that's my excuse. Although it's not a good one, it's just my excuse, right? And then my eyes are a little bit dark. That was an accident, and I don't really save it. I think it's partially because there aren't a lot of light color Ohuhu blues outside of the pastel set, and I don't know if I have the blues from the pastel set still. I think I might have used them all because I use a lot of blue, and I think I might have just killed those markers, but I'm not sure. That's not important. My eyes are a little bit dark. My eyes are more of a sky blue color, and this is definitely not, but I do try and save it, so it's okay-ish. I definitely feel like I have an altered perception of my own appearance that kind of came across, but I don't think it's particularly deceptive. My shoulders are probably a bit broader. It's hard to tell. I draw a lot of people in chunky sweaters, and so I over-exaggerate their shoulders quite a bit because I like to use that as a portrayal of the sweater's actual size, right? I like to make excessively large sweaters that kind of consume the character and add the ability for fun shapes, right? So if you actually were to draw someone in a huge sweater standing and their silhouette, you can have kind of smaller legs compared to the intensely large sweater that kind of engulfs them, and that creates some fun to the silhouette. That's something I like to do, but I don't think that this orange sweater that I'm wearing actually is particularly consumptive or large like that. It's kind of like a fitted oversize. It's tight on the wrist and the waist, and then just big everywhere else, and so the broad shoulders felt a little bit awkward after a while because I kept looking back at my reference and I'm like, I over-exaggerated this to the point where I'm not sure I actually understand what's happening under the sweater, which is fine, right? It doesn't matter. I have big sweaters. It's a big sweater. That's not bad. But I started kind of doubting myself and am I authentically portraying myself like I'm supposed to be celebrating, and I feel like I'm being deceptive. And then I remember that I am drawing myself, and it doesn't matter. It's not a big deal. The world is not going to end because I drew a sweater too big. But I did get in my head about it a little bit because it is really awkward and uncomfortable to have to stare at your own face for a while. I shouldn't say that. I find it really uncomfortable to have to look at my own face at all, really. So I just maybe was getting a little bit too in my head. I use myself as almost all of my references for my poses, but I'm not staring at my face or trying to get details down from my actual images. It's more for the gestural quality and to understand the basics of the environment, right? I'm getting down the simple stuff, and then I'm kind of incorporating or interpreting features from other mediums and stuff like that, right? Because real noses don't necessarily look the way I draw them, all of that jazz and stuff like that, right? And so I'm consuming other media at the same time, so I'm not strictly looking at myself as my reference. My reference is other things, and so this being my only reference, it was very awkward. I felt very awkward. I felt like I was looking at the same reference for too long. It felt criminal. I was I'm using one reference. This is bad artistic practice, right? Because I am of the mindset that if you're getting a reference from somewhere else, you should try to find multiple references of the same thing and take bits from everything instead of copying just one image. It's just kind of my approach to avoid taking too much of someone else's photography, because I never know if I'm on Pinterest the ownership rights of that photo, and if that photographer is comfortable with people just completely one-to-oneing it. And so I try to go out of my way to really find multiple references of similar things to take bits and pieces, or to alter it so much so that it's not truly resembling the original too much, right? Filter my own OC into the environment to a point where you wouldn't truly recognize the original reference if I didn't tell you, for example, or it's just the pose, but it's all my character, so you're not really gonna know. Stuff like that. And that's just kind of a philosophy of mine, but I'm also scared of copyright, and I'm also scared of upsetting photographers. Not because photographers are scary, but because I don't want to get in a fight with somebody over that, right? Like, it's their work, and they worked hard on it, and so I want to try and be respectful as possible, and I'm scared of Pinterest, and I'm scared of people posting things that they don't have ownership of there. But maybe I'm just a baby. Maybe I'm just a child and I'm scared of everything. That could also just be the actual answer. So, yeah, I felt very awkward looking at the same photo of me for so long. It's like, where's the other reference? I didn't even draw my own glasses correctly. My glasses are more curved, and I think they're a bit more thin-framed, but I'm really bad at drawing symmetrical lenses. It's like my actual downfall. I have so many characters that wear glasses, either all the time or sometimes, and I cannot draw them the same size and shape to save my life. I've kind of accepted the fact that all of my glasses are going to look a little bit funky no matter how hard I try, and now I just derive artificial confidence from the fact that at least it's not AI. Not like you'd ever think my work's AI. I'm not good enough for that, but right? It's like, at least it looks human made. I can't even make the glasses look right, but that's fine. Don't stare at them too long. They'll look good enough, right? Use the flip tool on Procreate. At the end of the day, it'll all be all right. No one will know. But that is an aside. I feel like the white gel pen was not jiving with me today. And that's bad because I'm the white gel pen. I'm a white gel pen goblin, right? I'm infatuated with it, honestly. I could write a love letter to the Signo white gel pen at the end of the day and I wouldn't be ashamed of it. But I just feel like it wasn't blending quite how I wanted it to. I don't know, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't. I wanted it to feel a little bit more ambient and a little bit less spot on, and I don't think I did the hair in a way that really allowed that. So I did end up having to go through and color over the white highlights so it would feel more incorporated into the hair, and then dabbing on some of the fresh white gel pens so it would feel less intense, and then those bright highlights would look better. And that's just kind of something I ended up having to do. I don't do it on camera, but that's why I really wanted to verbally explain it, because I think that ultimately there are a lot of ways to approach using a white gel pen to your benefit, and I should not just spew white gel pen supremacy without actually explaining some of the multiple ways that I will use a white gel pen to help benefit my art and have fun with it. I use it as a versatile tool, not just one way and one way only. And I feel like I don't talk about it enough, even though it's the only thing I talk about. The only person you need is the white gel pen. But also they're going to clog on you and you're going to cry. So maybe don't listen to my advice. Maybe our relationship's actually pretty toxic. Biggest downside of the illustration might be the decision to do a gray background. I knew it needed a background, right? Because it was bland and empty and white, and I hate a white background. And I hate working on white paper in general. I'm a toned background type of person when it comes to digital work, and so I like to not have any actual white outside of the highlight, like a good tone. And the gray, it felt indicative of my personality and how I like things to look. I'm a pretty admittedly bland person. I don't have particularly eccentric or exciting interest. I'm a bit alternative at best, but I don't think that necessarily makes having a colorful background particularly interesting. If anything, black would have been the better option if you were to take that into account. So that didn't feel right. A black background wouldn't have really like stimulated the eye too much, and it wouldn't have made the picture stand out in the way I wanted it to, and I didn't want it competing with the shadows too much. So gray seemed right, but looking at it in retrospect, it does kind of look like a school photo, which is not fun. So I do spruce it up a little bit, and I don't know if that fixed it, honestly. So you guys are gonna have to tell me in the comments when we get there. But I have the worst time getting Ohuhu markers to lay consistently flat on backgrounds, even after 2 to 4 layers. Like it still doesn't look right. Layer upon layer upon layer later, it still looks patchy for some reason. And I don't know if it's the paper, because it's a mixed media paper, not a marker paper, or just me and Ohuhus don't vibe together all the time, but I just feel like it's always patchy, and some of my other markers don't do this, some of them do it worse, but it just seems to be more of a mid-tone issue. I feel like my darker colors work better, and I think my lighter colors might be the worst, but I don't really know how to fix it, so I always go in with colored pencils, and I create visual stimulus to try and distract from the fact that my backgrounds aren't always consistent and even and necessarily pretty looking, so I don't know. But I'm not mad about it. It just was something that did kind of bother me, and I spent a lot of time trying to even it out with minimal success in the end. But that's okay. And it kind of made the school photo feeling worse, because I feel like the gray background in school photos is like a patchy, stormy gray, and the patchiness is supposed to like evoke a feeling, but it just makes you feel sad and vacant and not happy. But I do try to add some stars. I don't really know how to draw stars, so it's just, your classic diamond little party and some white dots, but I don't know, it felt kind of cute. I almost felt like a sim, even though it's not green, just the little diamond kind of near my head. I don't know, I haven't played The Sims in a long time. Maybe that's a bad example. I hope The Sims hasn't gotten into controversy recently. But I still wasn't feeling like it was sticking out from the background too well, so a good white gel pen border is a good way to fix that. Even if I do feel like watching me do a white gel pen border is kind of boring because my hand's in the way the whole time, so I did crop most of it out around the head because I felt like it was particularly in the way. But it did kind of make me wonder, do you guys want me to cut out the parts of my video where my hand is like in the way? Or is seeing the part where my hand like moves away and it's like a reveal interesting? Because I don't mind. I like seeing the points where the hand is in the way of other videos, because I kind of like seeing how other artists like hold their pens and stuff, and I like to think about it. It's kind of fun to just watch the like methodical flow of someone's hand, even if you can't see what's happening initially. Just the process of them laying down the material is really nice for me, and it's something that I find kind of methodical, but I have no idea if it's boring. Like, am I boring for liking it, or is it just boring in general? Who knows? I don't know. Maybe I do know, because I am a pretty boring person. But I don't know. It still wasn't feeling right with the white gel pen border. And I was starting to think, am I just so boring of a topic that I'm just not feeling invigorated? Or is the background just really that bad? And so, I don't know. I am very open to suggestions and thoughts. I think that maybe I'm just not really processing the possibilities of a gray background. But it's hard to tell. I don't know. So I try to counterbalance the kind of drabness that the background's making me feel by adding some more fun colors to the sweater. I did feel like it was a bit too monotone. I am kind of a monotone person, but I wanted to add a bit more of fun oranges and paint pens, some yellows and paint pens, other colors to try and make there be more visual stimuli for your eye to like catch on. It's like, oh, okay, there's some funky colors in here, but I didn't want to go full funk because I definitely wasn't going for a hyper pop approach, right? So I'm not trying to do anything particularly chaotic like I would be if I was doing a full Posca drawing, but I do want something that creates a little bit more interest in the overall kind of feeling, something that draws the eye a little bit better. And so I go through and I start adding different colored pencils just a little bit to tone up the overall vibe. Blue and orange are complementary colors, so I add that into the shadows to try and make it feel like it has a more interesting depth to it. And I was starting to feel my confidence come back. I was feeling a little bit better. It's like, okay, blue and orange, I know my complementaries. Yeah, this is giving me some snazz, some pizzazz to the drawing. And I was feeling a little bit better. I definitely feel like it was fixing kind of my issue with the orange just looking so bad. Oh, hello, Zoggert, the Ziggerzog of all the Zoggerts. We love Zog in this household. And so ultimately the blue was really helping, but it still wasn't feeling quite how I wanted it to. And it got to the point where I was just like, wow, I wish I had a traditional art undo button because this was actually just becoming confusing. I wasn't sure what was wrong, right? And so, of course, I have to step away from the piece for a little while, as I always do. And I think it's good practice as an artist to step away from your own art so that you can get a better idea of what might be quote unquote wrong with it, right? If you step away from your work and you just work on something else, or you take your mind away from the overall illustration for a little bit of time, you get that mental reset and you can come back to it and think, okay, hey, what is it in particular that is feeling off? And I try to do that with my sketching process, my inking process, and my coloring process. My sketching process and inking process are the most important times for me to do that, right? Because damn, if I haven't given some people some unsymmetrical, fugly ass faces, okay? I have given some people faces so unsymmetrical, it's almost incomprehensible that I ever thought they were symmetrical. Like, wow. You'd be amazed at the stuff I draw at 2 a.m. when I'm tired and I'm not processing information, right? So I stepped away for a little while, and I do go in with a black pen that is not marker safe because I'm done with markers, I think, at this point. And I start adding a little hatching and darkening up areas and thickening up lines to give it a little bit more of that personality that I like my art to have. I am a pretty line art heavy person, and I think that I kind of lost that in my line art, trying to be soft and focusing more on coloring it a little bit more realistically, right? Not going in with the funky colors. And so I go in and I start making it my art, and then I throw away the notion of, is it looking accurate? Is it looking appropriate for me and accurate to me? And I'm like, give it the longer eyelashes that I need for it to be my art. Add the funky hatching that makes the hair a little bit confusing. Thickening up lines and all of that stuff. Everything that just started making it feel more cathartic. And then I remembered that I have freckles, right? I have freckles. No wonder my face looked funny. I was missing my freckles. And I don't actually ever try and place freckles accurately. I say screw it, and I put blobs everywhere. I know my freckles are biggest on my nose, and they're chunky blobs, and a little bit lighter near my forehead. So, you know, I just go in, I add some freckles. I know my face looks dirty now, but we love freckle representation, and people other than me look really, really pretty with freckles. I was feeling a little bit better after that, and my art was starting to feel a little bit more like I was actually doing something that felt accurate, right? And I know it's like super minute details and they're almost entirely irrelevant and you can't even see them once they're completed, but it felt right for me. And it was one of those things where I was aware kind of that it was unnecessary and stupid, and it was one of those tiny details that no one is ever going to see or notice, and no one's ever going to sit there and be like, oh wow, they added freckles and things like that. But it felt very cathartic, and it was very much making me feel relieved in the product, and it was helping me identify what was wrong, because we look at our own faces a lot even if we don't like to or acknowledge it. Like, there's a mirror in my bathroom when I brush my teeth. I see my face, I see my freckles, right? And so I do think that that was part of what was making me feel like I was not looking right. And it was a part of what was bothering me. And these Canson XL mixed media papers are impossible for me to tear the pages out of, and I did not know where my X-Acto knife was. It was a time. With much struggle later and pulling it out of my actual sketchbook and kind of putting it away, having to think about it for a little while, I realized that the background was still too boring. So I took a white paintbrush and I went through off camera the incredibly tedious process of using the marker cover that comes with Ohuhu to cover chunks of the drawing and just splattering paint pen. I didn't want to cut out a silhouette and do all of that fancy effort that other people who actually care do. I wasn't feeling like it, and I was like, this is good enough, and if I get splatters on the face, it's fine, right? Or a couple splatters here and there, as long as it's not the central focus. And this felt so much better and so much more accurate, because while I am a bland and boring person, I do have OCD, and I do find that I can be kind of chaotic and scatterbrained with how my compulsions manifest in the real world and how I process those obsessive ideas that come to mind, right? And how I approach kind of my OCD, because, right, OCD is not a cleaning disorder. Say it with me. OCD is not a cleaning disorder. But I do find that my mind is very scatterbrained. Obviously, you've probably noticed from watching my channel, if you've been here for some time, that I have a really hard time actually like processing information, staying on topic, maintaining a consistent plot, and like remembering what I'm even actually talking about. Like I'm not even able to follow my own thoughts correctly, right? And I forget what I say and stuff like that. And so this felt a lot better, but it also felt more quote unquote artistic, right? It felt less clean, and it felt more right. I don't know how to word it. It just felt right. And I do like it better this way. If you liked it better before, let me know. I am very curious if the bland suited me better, but also it definitely looks less like a school photo now. So that also felt pretty good. And we've gotten to the point in the video where I somehow said everything and nothing all at once, and I want to say more, but I also don't know what else I could say without dragging on too long and exceeding what is acceptable for like the plot of everything. So ultimately, if you liked this video, I would really appreciate it if you liked it. Dislike if you dislike. If you have any thoughts, opinions, comments, anything at all, if you drew along with me, please let me know in the comments. I always love to see the work that comes from the people that support me and like my art. And have a wonderful rest of your day, night, wherever you are. Bye.